I don't know what time you guys have.
7:01.
Hello, Supervisor.
7:01.
Hello, Lisa. So, are we missing anybody on the board? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're missing. No, we got them all. We're all here. Okay. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and you can just remain seated as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll start it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Lynette, would you read the roll, please?
I sure will. Schwartz,
Here.
McKinney,
Here.
McGill,
Here in Superior.
Lincoln, Leakey,
Here in Superior.
Lewis,
Present in Superior.
Finley, here in Superior, Caviston,
Here in Superior.
All
And
right, I
I'm
should
here in
just-
Superior too, Brenda.
Yeah,
Sorry
and I'm
about
also
that.
on
so you're
Superior.
in your office.
Sorry about that. All right, so before we get into the adoption of the agenda, I'm going to read the chair script. And then we'll move the adoption of the agenda. And then before we get to our public hearing, I'll have to read the public hearing script. So welcome to the regular meeting of the Superior Township Board of Trustees. We are using the Zoom webinar platform. For members of the public who have joined us by video or phone, your microphones are muted but will be opened when appropriate. In order to minimize disruptions to the meeting and connectivity problems, only members of the board will have video. Applicants and staff have video access but have been asked to turn off their cameras until called upon. At that time, they may use shared screen capabilities if appropriate. All chat and question and answer boxes have been disabled. The meeting is being held by a video conference in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. All members of the public body and the members of the public participating electronically will be considered present at the meeting and may participate as if physically present at the meeting. All members of the board are participating from Superior Township, Michigan. There will be an opportunity for the public to speak during public hearing, if any, and during public comment period. Instructions for public comment will be provided at that time. So can I get a motion for the agenda?
So
And
moved.
with one,
Well, hang on for a second. I got a couple corrections or additions to make on that. So do we have it moved and supported?
Moved.
support,
Okay, so it's been moved and supported. So under communications, we're going to add a minute. Brenda has an announcement, and then Bernice would like to give a announcement on what happened at the last park commission. So I'm going to add Brenda and Bernice as under communications. And then under resolution C, fire department's matching grant, we're going to change that from authorizing the grant to ratifying the payment to Ann Arbor Township. So we're going to end up ratifying that because it was paid a little early. So let's ratify what the payment clerk did. And when we get there, we'll just explain it. It's not a big deal. So with those additions, are there any other additions to the agenda any board members would like to make? Seeing none, all in favor of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
Okay. Approval of the
Aye.
minutes. If I could get a motion on that.
move the minutes,
Support.
Okay, now I do have one correction to make under reports, supervisors reports, A. It says the Gulfside Village subdivision site plans were pulled. Actually, that was utility permits. That's just so strike site plan and put
Hold on,
utility.
Ken, hold on a minute, please. What page are you on?
I'm under reports,
Okay,
under supervisor report, the first bullet point, Lynette.
yeah,
The Gulfside subdivision site plans were pulled. They weren't the site plans, they were utility permits. So strike
Okay.
site plans and just put in utility permits. And that's the only change I have to the minutes. Any other changes, any omissions? Anything that needs to be removed, added? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
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 That takes care of that. Now we are going to move into citizen participation. And after that, we're going to have a public hearing. So I am going to read the script that I'm required to read before opening up for public comment and or a public hearing. At this time, we'll open up the meeting for public comment and after public comment for a public hearing. We will start with online participants. You can indicate that you'd like to provide a comment by clicking the raise your hand button found at the bottom of your screen if joining by computer, or the top of your screen if joining by tablet. Your microphone will be enabled one at a time until all online participants have had an opportunity to speak once. When you are unmuted by the host, you will see a dialog box that says stay muted or unmute yourself. Choose unmute myself if you wish to speak. Second, anyone who has phoned in will have an opportunity to speak. I will ask callers to speak by raising their hand by pressing *9 and then pressing *6 to unmute. Callers must take turns until each call wishing to speak has had an opportunity to speak once. Comments must be limited to 3 minutes. If a participant's comments result in disruptive behavior, the Open Meetings Act does allow for the person to be excluded from the meeting for a breach of peace actually committed during the meeting. I will first ask the host to mute you if you are engaging in disruptive behavior. If you continue with disruptive behavior, I will give you a warning that your behavior must cease or you will be removed from the meeting. If it continues, I will ask the host to remove you from the meeting. So saying that, we can move into our citizen participation. Ben, are there any citizens that are raising their hand at this time?
Mr. Supervisor, there is nobody that's raising their hand.
All right, so we'll close citizen participation and move on to public hearings. At this time, I am going to open up the public hearing on the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant application. If there's any citizens that want to comment on this trust fund grant application, the public hearing is your opportunity to do so. So at 7:09, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there any members of the public that would like to make a statement regarding this? Ben, has anybody raised their hand?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, there is an L. Pierce.
All right. Mr. Pierce, I'm assuming this is Lance? Lance, are you unmuted, Lance?
Yeah, he's still on mute.
All right, Lance, you must unmute. Ben, are you able to unmute Lance?
Mr. Supervisor, I've asked him to unmute, but I can't do it
Okay.
myself. He has to do it from his own computer.
All right, he probably is struggling a little bit.
Right, because he can hear us, so he can hear us, right, Ben?
I assume he can hear us, yes.
Yeah, so he's probably struggling, like you said, Ken.
Yeah, well, Lance talked to me about this. Let me text him real fast and let him know that he needs to unmute himself. And if he doesn't unmute himself in a minute or so, I'm going to close the public hearing, but we'll allow him to put in a written comment, which we will add to the public comments that need to go to Lansing. So I did text him And we'll give them just another minute. Let's see if we can do anything here.
Is there anybody else? Okay,
I don't,
There's
is there
nobody
anybody
else
else?
that has their hand. There's no one that has their hand raised right now.
he's
Okay.
off now. He's not even on.
Okay,
Wait a minute.
so why don't we allow Lance to put in an email comment? I know what his comment is. So Lance lives on, I don't want to speak for him, but this is what he told me, and I think it's a concern. He lives on the corner of Cherry Hill and Plymouth Road, and his house was built over 100 years ago on the original plat for Dixboro. So his front yard is very narrow. Probably from the edge of the right of way to his house is probably 15 or 20 feet. He's concerned about the placement of the sidewalk, that if it was to go in front of his house, there would be a real loss of privacy. So that's something we'll have to, of course, be sensitive to for anyone if a decision is made where exactly this
They might be able to
path
see
will
it.
go.
Oh,
think it's back
Mr.
on,
Mr.
Ken.
Lance should be able to speak now.
All right, Lance, you got the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I had to adjust something in my settings. Yeah, I missed a little bit of what you said, the background that I had talked to you, but yeah, my family's been here over 50 years. Like you said, the village was plotted in 1824, obviously before roads and road right of ways and everything else has come into play. I'm really, really opposed to having a sidewalk on the south side of Plymouth Road. It's like you said, in very close proximity to my bedroom window, the front windows of our house. And anytime you do a public right of way or walkway, it gives people permission to really do whatever they want. I mean, not whatever, but to be there, all the time. And the other issues too on this side of the road is there's a 120-year-old tree that's in my neighbor's yard. I've got one that's very old. I just don't see how you're going to manipulate all these old trees that were planted, over 100 years ago. And I don't know that a DNR grant should be used to promote something that's going to remove trees of that nature. There's already a sidewalk on the north side of Plymouth Road. I think that would make a little more sense to connect to that, or go, if it needs to go to the park, Church Street empties out at Dixboro Road right into the park. So maybe something could be worked as far as going through Church Street. And, I just wanted to be a voice for some of the other people that live on this side of the road that are going to have the exact same problem that I am. I know over the years, there's a lot of people that have always had a lot of great ideas for what needs to happen in Dixboro, but they don't live on Plymouth Road, which is, what it really, really affects. The people that actually still live here that haven't sold their houses to become businesses. So that's about it. If you had any questions for me, I'd answer, I'd answer, or if not, thank you for the time. And can I still put that in writing and add that to?
We would prefer that you do put that in writing and send it to Lynette. So when they send the package up to Lansing, it will include your comments.
Okay, yeah, I'm not opposed to bike paths and things like that. I think they're great, and the thing in Ann Arbor Township is great. But yeah, just this one's just a little too close to home for the people that are still living here. Dixboro wasn't built like Dexter or Manchester, where there's the old fashioned downtowns that you see, it just wasn't built like that. So there's just not the room, especially on the south side of Plymouth. So
All right,
I
Lance.
appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment. Ben, is there anybody else that has raised their hand?
Mr. Supervisor, there's nobody else that has their hand raised.
All right, so George, are you on? Can you come on for a second, George? Okay, thank you. So are you able to stand in for Kyle tonight on this?
I
A
am.
little bit?
So one thing I would mention is this is very conceptual in nature. This particular grant application does not require a lot of upfront engineering. Basically requires a figure with a conceptual route, a very conceptual cost estimate, and then we would pass the resolution later in the board meeting. So those are the requirements to apply for the grant. We have not done any preliminary engineering yet on the route, so I would like to just make that clear to everyone.
Right. That's what I'm sure people wanted to hear. Lance wanted to hear that. No definite route has been decided upon at this point. All right, thank you, George.
Yeah, and certainly we'll look further at both the north side and the south side as far as feasibility, but in terms of providing a clear figure to the DNR at this point, we thought it made most sense just to bring it, extend it, on the south side and then go north from there.
Thank you. Okay, so it is now 7:17. If there's no other person wishing to comment on this particular matter, I would ask the board, if you have questions, you can wait until we get to the resolution on the agenda to voice any opinions, concerns, or support you might have for this particular matter. So at 7:17, I'm going to close the public hearing. So that moves us on to reports. And I'll start mine off with last Friday, there was a court hearing by Salem Township had filed a show cause motion against Superior, saying that Superior was essentially foot dragging on granting the permit for the Salem sewer. So how this works, the adjudication works is that there's a motion first, and then if the movant, meaning Salem Township, persuades the court that whatever has been pled is true, the court would then set a time in which Superior, in this case, would have to come forward and explain to the court why we were foot dragging. But the court didn't grant the motion, denied the motion. So the case is still pending, but the court made no determination regarding, anything is happening with this case. The court indicated to the attorneys that the court is going to allow the board to do its job before there's sort of any kind of judicial review of this. So at this point, we did receive, I think in January, $30,000 towards escrow for OHM to begin to review the engineering that's been submitted. So OHM is undertaking that review at this point. And in fact, Salem Springs was denying OHM any access to the small physical plant they actually have in the little burg of Salem. And I guess the court indicated that that needs to be worked out. And I think, George, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there is a time that has been set for OHM to go out and analyze the small treatment plant that they have in Salem. Is that true, George?
Correct, yeah. I believe we'll be there on April 1st.
Okay. So at some point, OHM is going to finish up its analysis of the engineering and make a report to the board regarding the engineering only. And then the board is going to have to take into consideration the engineering and also the other impacts that we believe as a board, that our citizens would believe, that our planners would believe, or our lawyers would believe would materialize as a result of this sewer, such as it could open up the entire east side of the county to development, our master plan, and our citizens have always wanted this area to be low density residential, rural residential. And those impacts and the engineering will then have to be considered by the board and make a determination whether or not we are going to permit this sewer to go through Superior Township. I would say at this point, I caution anybody from voicing an opinion until we have all the facts before us, and then we can make a a decision, but the law on this case is that in a road right-of-way in a township, the road commission, the county road commission, and the township have joint jurisdiction over construction of sewers in the right-of-way. So the county has indicated, the county road commission has indicated that they will not issue a permit unless Superior Township issues a permit. We have not made that decision yet, but we are getting close where we're going to be, have to make the decision. The law is that the townships have a right to refuse to issue the permit, but it must be based on reasonable objections. It just can't be arbitrary. We don't want it. That's not good enough. It has to be a relationship between the sewer and negative impacts on the community. And we'll be showing what the negative or the positive could be. There could be some positive developments from it also. We'll have to weigh those out, balance them out, and we'll have to have a vote on that probably in May, I would say. Hopefully we can get done. George, how are you guys doing on your review at this point?
It's coming along well. We requested some additional information that Dave Landry is working on getting for us. As I mentioned, on April 1st, we're going to take a look at the existing treatment plant. So it's coming along, but there's a little ways to go.
Okay. So we're not pushing George to get it done fast. We're pushing George to get it done right so that the board has the best available information to make a decision. It may be that the engineering is defective. We don't know at this point, and we reject it on engineering alone and not even have to get into the other issues. We'll know that a little bit better down the line. So that's Salem versus Superior Township. Bottom line is the court is not going to require us to go to court and show cause why we have not issued a permit. For the new trustees, there has been an effort by the city of Ypsilanti to remove the Peninsula Dam for about 2.5, 3 years now. There is a Peninsula Dam working group of which I'm on that committee because we have about 6 property owners that are on the reservoir, on the Huron River Reservoir that backs up behind the Penn Dam impoundment. So those are like one person on Superior Road on the east side of Superior Road that has a really beautiful home there that they have built recently. And then there's like 5 homes to the west on First Street. And those are our citizens. Most of them, I would say at this point, they're opposed to the removal of the dam. However, we don't really have any choice in the matter. It is completely 100% up to Ypsilanti to make the decision. The only thing that we can do is insist through the permitting process. And, after the dam breakup in Midland, I think they're probably going to grant this because they don't want another dam break. City of Ypsilanti cannot get liability insurance to protect themselves in the event of a dam failure. So I think it's probably going to go. So the thing that we will probably be insisting on is that if there's any bad soils that are revealed as a result of the river channel being reduced back to its native size, and that what will now become a floodplain, which is now lake bottom, that it gets reseeded and it is properly taken care of and the bank is properly vegetated. That's about the most we can do. If there's old cars, junk or anything like that on there, we can certainly make, insist that is removed. So just to give you a little recap on what this committee has done, the feasibility study for the removal of the dam was completed in September 2018. Excuse me. Sorry. Then the Ypsilanti City Council authorized the dam removal 2 years ago in early 2019. The state DNR in September of 2020 authorized a grant of $330,000 to be awarded to engineering firms to do a removal, design, and analysis. And that's where they're at now. They got Limno Tech. I don't know who they are, but they're, I'm sure, a qualified engineering firm, and they're going to go through the process here of doing the engineering, and then the city will then be submitting these plans back to the state and requesting, I'm sure, more grant money to assist with the removal. The city will have to probably pay some, and they'll probably get a grant for some. And they expect that if everything goes according to their time frame, that it would probably be 2022, 2023 before the dam is removed. So,
Ken,
yes.
why are the citizens against it?
Well, they said they bought on a pond and they did not want a river.
Ah.
That, you know,
Okay.
that's pretty much it. But, you know, we'll see what happens. One person there, Brian, says he swims in that water all the time. But, but others have indicated that they don't really utilize it that much, although they kind of like having the pond. They're not sure they'll be as satisfied with a river. So we'll see. You know, the environmental benefits of having the dam removed are overwhelming. And the health and safety aspect of a dam that was built during the Civil War, and in which you can't get insurance on it because it's considered one of the top 5 critically dangerous dams in Michigan, you know, it's going to come out. So all we can do is work with the city and the DNR to make sure that our citizens get as much protection as they can through the process. Okay.
Is there an impact, Ken, on them as far as like flood insurance and any additional fees that would cost
They're
them?
all in floodplain down there.
Okay,
So they're not in the floodway, they're in the floodplain. So whether or not they need, you know, you're not required to have flood
flood
insurance.
insurance, right.
So I don't know if they're taking it or not right now, but there'll probably be better flood control after this is removed than now.
For
I
sure.
don't, yeah, right. Because the capacity, the carrying capacity of that pond will be down to the river channel. It'd take a whole lot. It's got to fill that whole pond up area again before it would overflow the bank. So that's a decision that they have to make as individual property owners. I've been in communication with Debbie Dingle's office regarding the funds that are going to be made available to Southeastern Michigan from the recent stimulus bill that Biden has either signed or he's going to sign. I don't know. I think he signed it already.
Signed it on Thursday.
He signed it on Thursday. All right. So we're going to be getting, I think it was 1.2% of the total amount relegated to Southeast Michigan, but it came out to $3.2 million that we are most likely going to get. I asked the Congresswoman's office, are there going to be qualifications on those revenues on what you can spend? It has to be, does it have to be COVID related? Can it be future pandemic preparedness? What can we spend this money on? And we haven't got an answer back yet. So as soon as we get an answer, I'll forward it to you. That's a lot of money coming into us when we really did not suffer a loss, too much of a loss. We had to buy some PPE and a few things. But, you know, our property taxes were increased 5% because of the increase in value. We had very few poverty applications on the board of review this go around. You know, it's, you know, we through the delinquent tax process, Brenda will now be submitting, she can talk more about this, her delinquent roll to the county. I don't know if you've done that yet and settled with them, Brenda, but whatever the delinquent tax was for 2020, in 2021, we'll be receiving that check back from the county in May or June. So we've been held harmless through this whole process. And we're going to get $3.2 million on top of it, or roughly 3.2. The question is, what can we spend it on?
But do we know at this particular point with the CARES Act ending June 30th, do we have a lot of folks that are currently in forbearance in the township? Because that's when we could potentially get hit with some issues.
The mortgage forbearance you're talking about?
Mhm.
I don't know. And I don't know if this could be used to help private individuals, this money, or can this money only be used for public purposes? That is still being fleshed out, I
Okay.
think. But,
Okay.
once we get it, we'll have a discussion on what we're going to do with it.
For
you
sure.
know? All right, so we finally received the executed contract from Republic Waste about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was only a couple years late. I don't know what took
Right.
them so long to get it back to us, but they finally did. But during the entire process of trying to obtain the signed contract, they fulfilled all the obligations of the bid contract. So nobody was harmed as a result of not having this contract. But, it's really not good administration by Republic. I mean, I know I have asked numerous times. I think Lynette has asked, I think Brenda has also asked, and we finally got it. So at least squared away, but this contract will expire next September. So the question will be, do we want to go out for bids on this next year? We usually look at what other communities are paying compared to us, and we've always been right in the kind of the average. It's really still a pretty good deal, but there's competition out there. So there might be someone else who wants to give our citizens a better deal, which I have no problem with. The only issue about changing providers is this huge problem that we faced when we went with waste management to Republic, and it was
It's a nightmare, Ken. It's a nightmare.
because everyone's got two cans.
It's a nightmare.
What
Within
the-
1 week and get 2 new cans,
Ah,
and some people, they don't get what's going on. They're just
It
still
was-
sending money to one, but they should be sending it to the other, and they're putting garbage in the old can when they should be putting in the new can. So we'll just deal with it next year.
it took us about a year to straighten it out. Remember that, Ken?
Yeah.
It was a nightmare.
It took them 2 years to sign a contract, so maybe they'll speed it up next time.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So
Well, I
Ken,
remember last time it was pretty much Bill McFarlane who had to deal with all the, complaints.
He
So
loved it.
that means I will have to deal with it.
Incoming.
Yes, Bernice?
so before we make a decision on what to do with the renegotiation with them or with another company, will we have like a small working group or something so that we can be aware of it?
Yeah, we can do it a variety of ways. The last time what we did when we had this contract is we met with, it used to be Rizzo, but it's now Green for Life GFL. And, they told us what they could do, and it was about the same amount. I think they were giving maybe $1 a quarter less. So we can at least get all of the prices out there. And if we go to a bid process, these bid processes, the last one that they went through, I think the bid was about 60 pages long. It's a really complicated bid process. But, what we're really looking for is good service at reasonable rates.
Mhm.
And right now we have pretty good service. I mean, we have like 5,000 customers in the township, and I haven't really had a complaint for a few weeks, but normally I'll get a complaint every time there's a cycle. But, one complaint out of 5,000 every 2 weeks, that's not bad,
Right.
And I can usually handle it. It's usually like they got a new driver, they missed somebody's driveway. I call up Republic or send them an email. Would you go to 123 Main Street in Superior and pick up the garbage? And they usually take care of it that day, same day.
So the only thing that I have to add about just getting the contract signed, like in the third year of what it should have been, is that the board should be aware that the contract that we voted to accept and to execute, somehow there's got to be like a feedback loop if there's a contract that's not coming back signed, just so that we know that, rather than waiting till almost the end of the contract to sort of get them to execute it.
I had reported to the board in the past that I didn't get the contract back,
You
and,
did?
well, yeah,
Oh,
several times. And
Okay,
Lynette
that's how
knew,
I
and
would be
Brenda
concerned
knew,
about.
so,
okay.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I gotta quickly say this. I've always expressed concerns about not having the contract back.
Right.
So, I'm one that I wouldn't mind. I know Brenda, you says a lot of work. But I'm concerned about a service that changed, and you can see the change in the service when they went to a regional center. So they no longer had customer service because they don't even know us anymore. People have to call a regional center in Texas or wherever it is to get their complaints. The only person we have here is, what's his name?
Well, we got Scott, but
Scott, thank
there's
you.
a group of others that I can contact regarding pickups. Scott's the government rep, yeah.
Right, and his position changed, so anyway, we can keep going, but I'm one that I wouldn't mind looking.
So the one issue that Lynette brought up, which is valid, they used to have a call center in Pontiac. And those people had been with the company for 25, 30 years. And the people there actually kind of knew Superior Township, even though we had Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor and Plymouth addresses. They knew some of those addresses were Superior and not Ypsi, Plymouth, or Ann Arbor. They moved their call center from Pontiac to Indianapolis. And people would be calling in like, you didn't pick up my garbage. And well, where do you live? I live at on Andover and Ypsilanti. And they go, well, you don't even have a contract with us.
Right.
And it's that finally has gotten kind of smoothed out. But it took them a couple years where having lots of issues with the call center. But I haven't had too many calls on the call center for the last year. So I think they got that fairly well straightened out, but it was a real issue for a while. So last week, Lynette, myself, and Brenda, we met with the staff of OCED, which is the Office of Community and Economic Development at Washtenaw County, regarding MacArthur Boulevard crosswalk. OCED is really pushing for us to have a crosswalk, a mid-block crosswalk down on MacArthur, so the kids can get from the one side, the Sycamore Meadow side, over to the playground safely. And I don't have a problem with doing this, other than the road commission has not said yes, and we haven't figured out what it's going to cost, but it will cost probably 3 to 4 years, if not more, of our CBDG grants. So this year, Juan is putting in for one of our CBD grants is a sidewalk from the parking lot on Community Park down to the bridge. So there's a sidewalk there. And then also the tennis courts from last year are going to be repaired this year. When that's all said and done, we're also requesting a grant. I don't know how much it's going to be at this point, or funding for, we were awarded a U.S. Forest Service grant for 74 trees down on MacArthur Boulevard. And the U.S. Forest Service will be paying for $150 per tree. Anything over 150, the township has to pick up. Well, my experience has been it's about $250 per tree to buy a nice 2-inch caliper tree and have it planted. So I would be asking the OCED out of our CBDG funds to pay that offset. So probably about $7,400 or so. Then everything can get rolled in. And after we have a little more clarification from the road commission on what would be the requirements for a mid-block crosswalk, we'll be in a position to know whether or not we can afford it through CBDG money, or whether or not we'll also have to add money to that. But in the meantime, what I've requested the road commission to do is consider making MacArthur and Harris a three-way stop. Right now, it's only a stop on Harris going south. The MacArthur traffic flows through, no stop. So they'll have to do their own little study on that, which these studies are not fast. And probably it would make more sense to wait until the library is in, because we're probably going to see higher volumes of traffic after that. But we're not asking for a light. We're asking for 2 stop signs, and I'm hopefully that they'll just grant that inter-traffic control order and we get new striping through there. And about 4 years ago, well, in 2016, OHM provided us with a bid on extending a sidewalk from the corner of Harris and MacArthur in front of what's now the branch library across the front to get kids and people to the park. And then there was going to be a sidewalk up to the library. The total cost of that in 2016 was going to be about $40,000. And that was, now concrete's a lot more expensive. I sent that all to OCED. We might have enough money to do that, get the stop signs in, get the new stripes painted in the road, and do a little safety project until we can make a decision whether or not, how much it's going to cost and whether or not we want to put a mid-block crossing in.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ken, you have in here, Juan sent you an email at 4:24 today. Should he continue with the community park or consider for the grant for 2021?
Well, I think Juan got a little bit behind on his work because we had told him about a month or so ago to go ahead and put that in to OCED for a park improvement this year. And then we got a email from Tara on Wednesday saying, hey, your park or your submission is due next Wednesday, meaning 2 days from now. So I thought Juan had it all done, but then he's asking.
The other part of that, so you're saying that he cannot go forward to help assist with the MacArthur project that we had that meeting for last week, and you prefer to go to the, what is it?
The road commission?
No, community park. So
well, that's only going to be about $10,000 to do that community park improvement. We have no idea what the mid-block crossing will cost. I mean, they brought the one from Pittsfield, it was over $200,000, and that didn't include engineering and drainage. So, you're probably talking to do a mid-block crossing because you got to expand the road width to put an island in the middle. And then you have to have a mid-block crossing. Sometimes you need those hawk lights, those flashing lights. Sometimes you don't. You have to put in drainage usually and connect that to your storm drains or modify the drainage. It's not cheap. We couldn't do it this year. We don't even have engineering for that.
Can we get about what, 27,000 a year for that roughly?
This year we got increased to 32.
Okay, my only concern with that, over the years we have used that money to put into the neighborhoods. And if we use that money, we won't have money to put in our neighborhoods for improvements. And that has really improved our neighborhoods. We don't get that much.
Yeah, so back in 2010 to 2013, the township board was putting all the money into road improvements. And then around 2014, the board made a decision, we're going to kind of give this money to parks and into the neighborhoods to kind of improve those things. And we haven't spent as much, so we've accumulated. Right now, we got, with this year's allocation, probably $80,000 total. But when and that includes already paying for the $30,000 tennis court improvement, which is going to happen this spring. There's tennis courts at Community Park right next to Glen Oaks Cooperative, but the concrete is all broken up. It needs to be completely resurfaced, repainted, the fencing redone, and new netting through there. So last year's money went into the tennis court, and then also there was some money that was spent on the sidewalk that was put in over at Community Park. And after we spend all this money this year, we're gonna probably have like $35,000 to $40,000 fund balance over there. And then we'll get our 2022 allocation, which be probably about the same or maybe more. I mean, if we got this $3.2 million and we could spend it any way we wanted, that could be a possibility that we could do that project.
Yeah,
Good.
well, I was getting ready to say, I think that from what I hear with that money, people are planning to do whatever they can in the communities, even if it's road improvement. So
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
totally into investing that into our neighborhoods, our parks, making everything better throughout the community.
I am too.
Okay, so let me just finish off. I think I said this last week or last month, but the library groundbreaking will be April the 7th at 3 p.m. over at the Harris Road site. And, we had a firefighter. This is a bad situation. We had a firefighter who was convicted of operating while visibly impaired on February the 4th, 2021, up in the 53rd District Court in Howell. Now, he was originally charged in with a drunk driving of a BAC, a blood alcohol content of 0.22, which is super drunk, and in January of 2020. So he pled guilty to this. They reduced it from whatever it was, super drunk, they reduced it to operating while visibly impaired, which is 2 classes lower than the original charge. He pled guilty to that. And on February 26th, the chief called me up and said, "You got to get down here. I got this information from Secretary of State." Well, it turns out that he had an operator's license, but he also has what's called a firefighter's operator's license, which is the equivalent to a CDL, commercial driver's license. In the information we received from Secretary of State, his driver's operator's license was restricted to and from and in the course of employment, and to and from probation, and to and from medical, and that sort of thing. But that if he had a CDL or its equivalent, it was revoked. So we met with this person, and I'll send you an email. I just don't want to put it out there on the internet, all this bad stuff. I'll send you, who he is. And so once we got this information, we called our insurance, Decker and Associates, and they referred the chief to the risk management person for Decker, who indicated that the township would not be covered if this person drove on a revoked license. So the chief, when he heard that, he immediately suspended him from driving, which is a big issue because every firefighter must drive an apparatus. And, like a month ago, I don't know if you guys all know this, we had a baby that drowned in a bucket over on, I think it was on Andover.
Just rip.
Yeah, it fell into a bucket head first and it died. And so we had to respond to that. And of course, HVA was trying furiously to revive this child. And so our firefighters, one had to drive the fire truck to St. Joe, and the other firefighter had to drive the ambulance. Had to drive the ambulance while the 2 HVA guys were working on this child. So this happens all the time where we end up driving the ambulance, and of course we have a guy who can't drive. So he has been suspended at this point without pay, pending a final determination by the fire chief as to the appropriate way to go. And the chief and I are recommending that he be discharged, that we fire him. The main reason is, one, he cannot fulfill his responsibilities and his duties under our standard operating procedures, but also because he never told the chief that he had this problem. And we feel strongly that this person tried to cover it up and was hoping to slide by. Didn't know the system, didn't know that we'd be notified by Secretary of State. Had no idea. He thought other people had notified the Secretary of State of this, his enemies out there, who then notified us, but it was actually the court sends an abstract pursuant to the record of conviction on a traffic, matter to Secretary of State that puts it into his master driving record, sends out to the employer, because we have accounts with the Secretary of State, the updated information. So it was just a matter of routine that we received this. But yeah, we feel very strongly that this individual was not honest. And had we not received that notice from the Secretary of State, and he was driving around now and got into an accident and hurt somebody, we would have the township would have been exposed. So under the collective bargaining agreement, you have no right to any of your benefit payout unless you have a vested 10 years with the local. This person is one of the safer grant guys. He's only been here for like 2.5 years. So he's not entitled to any benefit payout. But what I suggested to him, of course, it would be up to the board, but I would strongly recommend this, is if he wants to just quit and resign his position, I would offer him that he could have his benefit pay, which is about $11,000 out of the fire fund, and we'd give him a neutral reference. But if he wants to fight the termination, then he's got to file the grievance, go through the collective bargaining process, and I don't see how he could win that myself. So how that would work is that he would file a grievance with the chief would answer it. If he didn't like the answer from the chief, it comes to the supervisor. If he doesn't like the supervisor's answer, then it goes to arbitration if the union agrees to pay for it. So they have to have an election or a hearing on that. And I think that this person's going to end up terminated one way or the other. We don't think he should come back, primarily because I feel strongly that he engaged in not telling us. It's been 14 months and he never told us that he had this problem. And we might have been able to help him. I don't know. So I'm just filling you in on that. And if you want to talk more about it, just give me a call and I'll be happy to give you updated information.
Supervisor, I just would like to say thank you very much for keeping us abreast on matters like that.
Yeah, well,
I know that's a sensitive matter, all the way around.
It is sensitive. I don't want to see the guy ruin his career, and he won't, but he can't even get hired on anywhere by any other fire department right now until his 90-day suspension is over and he pays his reinstatement fee. And if he has a problem in the next 90 days, it could be flopped for another year. So how the fire department schedule works is, we have 2 firefighters at Station 1 in Ford and Prospect. We have 2 firefighters at MacArthur and Harris. They alternate driving days. So for one shift, one person drives the entire time. The next time that same shift comes on, the other driver drives the entire day. And they alternate on that. And that's the way I think almost all fire departments work. And we actually added these 4 firefighters to a shift through this SAFER grant, which we are in the process of applying for an extension of that. And for the express purpose, one of the express purposes, there was several, but one of them was there was times when only he had one person down at Fire Station 2. They would respond and they would have to drive the ambulance. Well, they have to leave their fire truck at the scene because there was nobody to drive it. And then we'd have to deploy 2 guys to go down, pick up that fire truck, return it there, pick that guy up, bring it back. So we need to have people who can drive 24/7.
That's true.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Ken-
I got a call from Ben Panett at Washtenaw County on the first Saturday of March. You know, they do the tornado warning check. And the tornado warning was the tornado siren at Prospect and Getty's failed again. I mean, it seems to fail every year. So I authorized West Shore to go out and replace the battery, which it's always been about $100, $120. And we had to get it done because it's a tornado siren. So I don't know what's wrong with that siren, but this is probably the 6th time that it's gone down, always because of a battery in the last 6 years. So we had the border review last week. We met Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Paula, who is our assessor, her son ended up going into emergency room on Thursday. She had to leave. Her son was quite ill. He's home. He's doing a lot better now. So the border review was going to meet to do all the signatures and stampings either today or tomorrow. And I didn't see anybody in here today, so it's probably going to be tomorrow. Once the board review completes the task, I'll have like how many poverty exemptions we had, how many veterans exemptions we had, and then how many, we didn't have many cases this year, probably about 30 total, about maybe 40 total, but we didn't have many people who actually set up appointments to come in and challenge their taxable value or any of the values that were assigned. But the work will be completed this week, and I'll get everybody else a copy of the stats from that. We also have had, I sent to everybody the marijuana revenue report. And so everyone kind of looked at it. I got a little bit of feedback that possibly some of the trustees might want to review the marijuana ordinance where we would allow some marijuana into the township, either as grow operation, processing, transportation, dispensary, or what they call is a micro business. And so there was this guy, his name is Sam Pernick, and he's with, I forget the name of the group, but he's like Marijuana Advocates of Michigan or something like that. And they go out and do initiatives. So Initiative 1, which was passed in 2018, allows citizens to go out and petition to have an ordinance put out for an election. And then the voters decide on it. Well, you know, the initiative might say, theoretically, like Superior Township, we want 10 dispensaries, 10 grows, 10 processing, and it gets voted by the people, and they say, yeah, we want all that, and then we're stuck with the problem. So I think maybe we should take another look at it and make a determination. I'm open to having what's called the micro business or the micro grow operation. And this Sam Pernick guy said, why don't you go out and find a couple farmers in Superior Township that are on appropriate locations where they could have micro business. So I know that he contacted David Zalise, and David called me. And I told David, if you can work something out with this guy, bring it back, we'll take it to the board and we'll figure out what we can do. So at least 2 trustees have indicated that they would be open to taking a look at this. And I just want to let these 2 trustees know the reason why the township board said no originally is because when Initiative 1 was passed, there was a deadline given of October 2019 to either opt out, opt in. And if you didn't opt out, then it was just left open. People could come in and apply for licenses in Lansing. It was the same as opting in, but you didn't have an ordinance. So we opted out because it was just a little too tenuous for us at that point. But these groups have been fairly successful wherever they've gone on these initiatives. They recently got it up in Pinckney. Now, there's been a lot of case law on this from the Supreme Court indicating that grow operations can be zoned in industrial areas. So there's a lot of case law to be developed on this. And I would do it primarily or advocate doing it primarily to avoid something that we could not control, which would be an initiative, and not for the money. We really don't need a micro business would give us $28,000 a year. And two of them that would give us, $56,000 a year. And we would Ypsilanti, which has many, many dispensaries. I don't know how many they have. I think they got
Too many. Too many.
Washtenaw County, which gets a cut on everything in Washtenaw County, got 600,000. So for the county, it kind of makes sense for them. But I think this is something, if the trustees want to review this, then they ought to make a pitch that we look at developing an ordinance on that. And so I'm not going to initiate that, although I would initiate an ordinance for a micro grow business, especially if it could help our farmers like David's a lease. He can negotiate a lease for his property. He runs an orchard out there. He works his butt off, and he doesn't make a lot of money selling apples. And he wants to keep his property, his 80 acres that's been 100 acres that's been in his family for at least 120 years. He wants to keep it open and in agriculture if he can. So to me, that makes some sense. So the April meeting, it's going to probably be on Zoom, and we're going to have to reconsider month to month when we're going to go into person. So Executive Order 2020-75 extends the electronic meetings until June the 30th. So it's legal to have these electronic meetings until the end of June. So, right now, I don't think anyone's really wants to come back in April. Maybe people want to get a little more vaccinated. And in April, we can discuss whether we want to come back in May. In May, if we decide not to come back, we can discuss whether we come back in June. And then we'll see if the governor extends it again or just cuts it and says you got to meet in person. Is there anybody that really wants to meet next month in person? I mean, I'd kind of like to, but I can understand people being very reluctant to do so.
I'd like to get vaccinated first. I've already have to do some small exposures with my job. So if I can minimize the number of exposures in the course of a month, that would be great.
Yeah,
And, I just want to say, I agree with Rhonda, Trustee McGill's point, but I just want to say, even when people have been vaccinated, that does not prevent them from getting the virus. So I just want to say that because I have actually been vaccinated, but I just want to say that. So, and I protect myself a whole lot because I work around, probably about 1,000 kids a day. So, yeah.
Yeah, the executive order says, even if you've been vaccinated, you have to wear a mask and socially distance. So
I wear 2 masks and a face shield.
Okay.
I understand. I remember last March, last time we had a meeting, you came in like you look like you were like ready to go into space.
Yes.
I would much rather be around people that's been vaccinated. I'm just scared to go around
I
anyone that
agree.
hasn't been vaccinated.
I agree.
I'm just not
Okay,
comfortable.
so we won't have a meeting in April except by Zoom. And then I wrote an email to Greg Dill and I said, Greg, what's the county doing as far as reopening? What's your health department recommending? I saw that Ypsilanti Township and Pittsfield Township reopened on a limited basis today. They're not requiring appointments, although they still highly recommend appointments. And they're only taking walk-ins for what they consider essential purposes. So that'd be like building permits, sewer permits, things that have to be done, registering for voter files, registering to vote, things like that. But I think that we should probably hold off another couple of weeks until we hear back from the county, because Greg said, I'll get back with you once we figure out what we're going to do. And that was a week ago, and I haven't heard back from Greg. And, quite honestly, we have had no big demand, for appointments. I don't think we've had 5 appointments since November. So we've handled it pretty well. But I will be glad to get back to full-time, open up. It may not be until summer, but we haven't had any citizen dissatisfaction with what's happening right now. Okay, that concludes my report.
Nancy has a comment, Ken.
Yes, Nancy.
Ken, aren't we getting all of the township business done in this format until we're all vaccinated and every one of us, all 7 of us, feel comfortable in coming back to an office setting, a conference room setting, so to speak? Please doing that now?
We are providing our typical and usual services. Brenda was able to get through the winter tax collection, I think with a minimal problem. She can address that better than me.
Yeah,
July
I have not
1st.
had any problems. I've been coming in on Saturdays, and I have one person coming in like once a day, no more than 2, not every day. And so it is working out, Nancy, for my department.
I was hoping you would say that because I feel comfortable doing it this way
Mhm.
until we're all vaccinated and maybe it isn't quite so scary.
I agree.
I would prefer to keep it this way, but
Well,
that's.
I thought most people would.
Yep.
Lynette, have you had any issues with people like voters or anything, or you've been able to accommodate everybody?
Everybody, no problems whatsoever.
Excellent.
The one department that is busy all the time is building, because construction was never
Construction.
stopped.
Just building.
So, we're busy on construction. You can see what's going on down at Gulfside Estates, go over to Woodside. They're finishing off at Prospect Point East. We have Prospect Point West coming in for a new sub. We have the people coming in for a new sub on Getty's. So that's going to continue. So Allison, who is our building clerk, Rick Marinick, who's our building inspector, they really haven't taken any days off due to COVID. But they've been able to keep up with it. Fire department obviously has had no time off. Utilities has done a pretty fair job of getting people taken care of. I do get a couple of complaints, but it's usually about the water bill being too high or something. And the meter must be wrong. I could never have a bill this high, that sort of thing. So that, Nancy, I think that I'm looking for when the board, we can go to June without a problem, and I'm just looking for the board to tell me when they feel comfortable enough to come back to in-person meetings.
Okay, that's kind of what I was hoping to hear. It sounded like maybe, we might not be getting things done, but from my view, it looks to me like we tackle everything that's given in front of us at these meetings, even though we might not be able to turn to Brenda and ask her a question person to person. This, of course, is what I'm talking about. But it really has accommodated us in this format. And I'm kind of hoping my vote would be to stay this way until we're all vaccinated and maybe this, death rate, and of course, we're doing a good job on that from what I understand, is a little less, and it's a little less scary meeting person.
But Nancy, you can call me anytime. People call me all the time. I get emails all the time. I answer them. So feel free to call me whenever you want, please.
Of course. I come to the office when I need something, but I'm thinking person to person,
Right. That's what
7 of us. And as long as we're getting the work done, I don't see how anybody can think that. But I may be wrong. That's my vote.
The work is getting done, Nancy.
Perfect.
Okay, so that concludes my report. So if I could get a motion on departmental reports.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion on that. Is there any questions or comments regarding those reports? Seeing none. All in favor of receiving those reports, say aye.
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 Unanimous. That takes us to communications. We got a letter from the United States Department of Commerce. This is regarding the census. You can read that yourself. My understanding is that they're going to get out and start doing house calls now for people who haven't responded. I don't know how the census is going to be totally impacted by COVID, but I think there's already been, some delays in gathering information, and also a lot of statistical analysis that has to be done on that. But, we have reapportionment this year for county commissioners, state reps, state senate. And so they gotta kind of get moving on that. But under communications, Brenda and then Bernice. Brenda, why don't you take the floor first?
Well, I want to just say it brings great sadness for me to tell you that my deputy Vicky of 8 years will be retiring April 7th, and with family issues. And my part-time administrative assistant, Becky Asadi, will be appointed deputy, my deputy, beginning April 8th to July 1st. And my permanent deputy will begin July 1st. So I just wanted to let you all know that.
Is that all, Brenda?
Yeah, we're gonna miss Vicky. She was loyal, she was dedicated. I'm gonna miss her. I think the whole township will. She was
Sure.
a very pleasant person.
Mhm.
Well, she worked part-time for assessing too.
Right.
So, yeah. It's gonna be hard to fill her role.
But I have
Bernice?
everything all set for my deputy, so I've made some good choices with Becky, and then my permanent deputy beginning July 1st will be perfect too.
Okay. Bernice, you got the floor?
Okay, so as the Parks and Rec liaison, I can tell you 3 things that has been happening. One is just they've got their roster of recreation special events done, and I believe they put out a special events flyer that people will be seeing. So you'll see, the Easter egg day, movie days and whatnot. The other thing was that as a result of the retirement of Dave, is his name Butterbaugh?
Budabaugh.
Okay, Budabaugh. Okay.
Mhm.
The maintenance supervisor position was posted, and the interview process is underway. And then last Wednesday, there was a subcommittee meeting of Martha, Kern Beaupre, I'm getting their names still, Marion Morris, Juan, Ken, and myself to discuss Shock Park. And at that meeting, it was just clear that the main concern on the park side is that they have adequate space for their equipment and machinery. And, I know that on the Board of Trustees side, we were concerned about that word perpetuity, that we couldn't promise that something would be available on the township campus in perpetuity. But what we could, we talked about promising is that they would have the same square footage or the same space. We would meet the same space needs that they have right now, should the township space not be available to them. Ken had agreed to put this as an agenda item for our April meeting. So at that point, we will discuss what the final decision is. There was some going back and forth about what what parks wanted and what the township wanted, but there will be something coming to the board in April.
Yeah, I think we all came to a reasonable resolution of this. I think that they were convinced that that area doesn't really work well as a park because it doesn't really attract any patrons, and that there's, you got the township hall, you got the old township hall, you got the pump station, you got the garage and the pole barn, all on property that's kind of insecure. And it probably just makes more sense in the long run to have as part of a common municipal campus. But they also wanted some assurances that we wouldn't just boot them out of the pole
Right.
barn and say, fend for yourself. And we promised we wouldn't do that. We'd have to accommodate them with similar or identical square footage somewhere else in the township, build them a pole barn. Hopefully, if we build a new fire station to replace the old fire station and the library goes in and gets out of the fire station number 2, that'll be an empty building and the board could just give it to Parks and that would take care of probably all of their needs. Even at that point, they might want to leave a tractor or something up here. You know, I don't see us using it at all for the foreseeable future. I just don't want to be buying a future board to say, you can never use it, you know? Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Brenda and Bernice. And that takes us to unfinished business, which we have none. And that takes us to new business. And our first resolution is 2021-10. It's the Robert Butler Side Street Maintenance Agreement. Just so that the new trustees know, we established a side street special maintenance special assessment district probably about 20 years ago, where we levied, this year we're levying $22 per unit in Oak Brook, Washington Square, to be able to do side street maintenance in those subdivisions along MacArthur. And every year we have a contract with Robert Butler, who has done a phenomenal job. I mean, he keeps everything, I would say, as close to perfect as we could ever expect. And so the proposal would be to give him a 3% increase for 2021. And he would start theoretically on April the 15th, but if it was to warm up a lot and the grass would grow, Robert would just be out there cutting it on April 1st if he had to be.
And I would like to just add, let the board know there's 871 parcels that homes that pay into this side street maintenance fund. And it's really made a big difference in the subdivisions over the years. A lot of improvement in the neighborhoods.
Well,
I
the main
concur.
improvement has been when you drive down MacArthur, 20 years ago, the grass would grow 2 feet high down there. It just wasn't being maintained. And I don't know if anybody remembers Mr. Stanley Stewart, but Stanley would come and he
I
he no
do.
longer lives in the township, but he would complain and complain, and he was absolutely right. And the board back in like 2000, I think, created this special assessment district, hired
Yeah.
Robert to do it, and we've never had an issue since.
Well, but
We got
first
a
it
lot
was
of confidence in how good it
First
looks.
it was Mr. Swanson, and then he died. And then Mr. Butler took over.
It was Charles Swanson. He used Mr. Butler. Then Charles died like 3
Right.
years ago, 4 years ago.
Well,
And
I'll move this contract.
okay.
And
I
I'll support it. Oh.
All right. Anybody got anything else they want to say? All right.
I think
listen,
we're all so excited about that. We all supported that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an
he does
easy
an
one
excellent
here.
job.
Yeah.
Lynette, would you take the roll on this, please?
If you want me to, yes, I
It's
will.
the contract, so we
Yes,
should.
I know. Finley, yes. Caviston,
Yes,
Lewis,
Yes.
Linky,
Yes,
McGill,
Yes,
McKinney,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes. Thank you. That takes us, so we'll sign that and get it out to Robert. That takes us to the next resolution, 2021-11, which is the building department contractual inspector rate. So this is a proposal to raise the amount we give our inspectors from $35 to $40 per inspection. Now, we are not increasing the permit fees. We have about $800,000 in our fund balance for building. So it will come out, the extra $5 will come out of that. But yeah, as you can see, there's other communities, the prices that they charge, and we'd be kind of right in the ballpark average, maybe maybe a touch high, a touch low, depending how you view it. But we've had Ed Manier has been with the township, I don't know, 30, 40 years as our electrical inspector. And John Diffenbacher has been with us off and on since about 2003. He did get laid off. He was full-time employee for a while. He got laid off in 2008 or 9, went to work for City of Ann Arbor, retired out of there in 2017, 18, then came back to work with us. And so we got a good staff. This is being requested by Rick Marinak, and I think he just wants to keep his guys happy. And right now, if you're a building code official in the state of Michigan, wide open where you can go and get work. Because
Move resolution 21.
And I support it. I support it.
Any
They sure
questions?
took
on
good, they sure took good care of me. That's all I gotta say
Okay, any questions on it?
with my inspections.
I see none. We don't need to do a roll call on this. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. The next is resolution 2112, fire department matching grant. So when you see the top resolution to authorize payment, I struck authorize and put ratify. So what happened in this apparently is that we got an invoice on the grant. It's being, the fiduciary of the grant is Ann Arbor Township, and they need to collect our 10% before they send us the equipment. So they sent us the invoice, I think, on February the 12th, and the chief brought it down and Nancy paid it. Now, she should have held until this was to authorize the payment, but for whatever reason, Nancy sent the $6,529 to Ann Arbor Township, which we had to do anyways, but the procedure was just a little bit off. So what we're going to do if we pass this, we're going to ratify the payment to Ann Arbor Township for our portion of the grant.
Move resolution 21-12.
Support.
Are there any questions on it? Seeing none, all in favor of approving, say aye. The invoice, say aye. Aye. All right. So the next resolution is support for the Ann Arbor Greenbelt Preservation Program. And, you know, I've wrote everybody a long list on this. I think Brenda can fill in a few blanks because some action was taken by county parks on this, I think last week. But essentially, Ann Arbor Greenbelt has invested fairly significantly in the township, in our township. But about a year and a half ago, the Greenbelt denied a acquisition grant to Northfield Township because Northfield said, thank you, but we're not contributing. So they said, well, then you're not going to get anything. So we went back to Northfield and they came up with, I think, 200 an acre, and they finally got it. So I believe that Ann Arbor Greenbelt really is strongly looking for partners on this.
Yes,
And so there's two proposals that are two parcels that are being proposed, which are, I'm saying this for the record now,
Fishback.
is Bill Fishbeck's property on
The force.
on section 4, but wait a minute.
He didn't.
That's the one I was telling you about
Right.
last week.
Yeah, so it's 71 point, I don't know how this is working to acquire the development.
It's the one by Vreeland
Yeah, I
and
know.
Stummer Road. On Stummer Road down there.
Okay, I see. All right. So there's a typo in the first whereas on the 75.5, that should be 71.5 acre parcel in section 21. That is the DeForest property. In the 63.3 acre parcel, section 21, that's in section 21, that's a 71.5 acre parcel belonging to the Fishbecks. And speaking, that belongs to the DeForest, and that is located on Vreeland and Stommel Road. And then a 63.3 acre parcel in section 4, that's Bill and Betty Fishbeck's property. And so I understand from Brenda that it went to the Knapp program, and that
Right.
County Parks authorized a purchase for these two parcels. Now it goes to the Greenbelt. The Greenbelt will make a decision in April,
Right.
but they are asking us to contribute, and I think we should contribute $250 an acre and take half from the general fund reserves, which would be 17,225, and then the same amount from Fund 204, which is the legal defense fund / PDR millage that we have a balance of $286,000 in.
Move resolution 21-13.
Support.
Okay, are there any questions on it? I wrote a fairly extensive memo to the board. Does the board have any questions on it? Okay, Lynette, we should probably do a roll call on this one.
Yes. Lewis,
Yes.
Linky. Linky,
You're on mute.
Caviston.
Yes.
Yes,
Finley, yes. McGill,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
unanimous.
Okay, so that takes us to resolution 2021-14, the approval of the application to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. George, are you still on?
Yes.
You want to address the resolution, George?
Sure.
I know that Kyle Seltzer did the resolution or proposed most of this, but
You did, yeah.
He's
That's
under your
our
wing.
project engineer. So just a brief overview. As I mentioned earlier, the route is very conceptual at this point. So is the cost estimate. So at this time, we're estimating the total pathway construction cost to be approximately $480,000. The maximum amount that you can get from this grant is $300,000. So as long as we're over that amount, you would be eligible to get the full grant amount based on how you score on the grant application. If you were to get the full $300,000, there would be a township match of approximately $178,000. So just so you're aware of the cost aspect, I think, I would talk to the supervisor more. We may pursue other grants. There could be other grants available where you could cover your match through additional grant funding. So just keep that in mind also. And then, as I said, the route is basically from the location of the Dixboro House Restaurant westward to Dixboro Road, and to get to the nature area. That is just north of Plymouth Road. But one thing I wanted to mention too is that the road commission is currently working on an extension of a pathway on Dixboro from the Mathau Gardens, Botanical Gardens. So if that is constructed later this year, as we anticipate, we possibly could connect right into that pathway directly. So that would actually be our goal if we move ahead with the project in the future. And we did draft the resolution for Clerk Finley, and that's what we would need passed tonight and then filled out and sent back to us later for the grant application, which is due by the end of this month.
right, so I sent out emails to a lot of people in Dixboro to get letters of support back, and they're gonna get those back to us in the next week or so, which we'll get them to George. I got like 15 people who contacted me through email, like, yes, we will write whatever you want us to write. It's like, write what you want to write. So we paid OHM $5,000 to do the analysis here. And if for any reason we got approved, we would not have to necessarily take this grant, but it would be great to be able to have a connection to the new path that's going in from Mathai Gardens to Marshall Park, and then down Dixboro all the way eventually to Ford Road. And you could take this all the way to Plymouth if you chose. I talked to the Ann Arbor supervisor, Diane O'Connell, I think about a month ago, and I believe they're actually opening up the bids tonight, or they're awarding the bid tonight for they're either awarding the bid, or I don't know if they're undertaking it, or the road commission, or they're approving their portion of the grant tonight. But she was hoping that this would be built this summer. So, to have a connection to that would allow people from Dixboro to go all the way by bicycle to downtown Ann Arbor. It'd be great.
Wow, that's great.
Very nice.
And that project, I think, George, you can correct me, it's almost $2 million, isn't it, to do that one, the Ann Arbor Township portion?
I'm not sure of the cost, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. So, do we have a motion for approving the resolution?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Are there any questions on it by anybody on the board? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. All right, so that's unanimous. That takes us down to a motion to appoint a member to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Dave Gunther, who was on the
You
ZBA.
miss F, Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. So we have got an invoice from My Deal to pay $230 for our membership fee.
So move.
Support.
We've used My Deal a lot on fire trucks and other things. We've saved a lot of money through My Deal. It's a good deal. Okay, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the invoice, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then the last item is Dave Gunther has, I think that he's actually moved out of the township and now lives in Ann Arbor as of just the last week or two. And he was on the ZBA, so we have to fill his seat. And we also lost John Rentamaki last year. So we lost our two of our most experienced and able board members in the last year. So we have to appoint somebody at this point, and Tom Brennan has been on the Planning Commission for 6 years, and he's being recommended to fill Dave Gunther's chair or seat for a 3-year term. Can I get a motion on that?
So move.
Support.
Okay, any questions? Got to have a full complement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that takes us down to bills for payment and records of disbursement.
Move the
Anybody have
bill.
any?
Move the bills.
All right,
Support.
all right. Are there any questions on the disbursements or anything? I have drafted a preliminary resolution for prepayments. And I'll need to talk to Juan in some detail about parks. I probably gonna have to seek a little legal advice on parks. They're a separate, legal board created by the people and through a vote of the people. And yet all of their funding comes from the general fund. In the past, we have just delegated to them the authority to make decisions about payment, but I have to check out and find out if we've been doing it right, or whether or not we need to add some language in the prepayment resolution language that would authorize them to do certain things and not to do other things, and certain things would have to come back to the board for approval. So hopefully we'll have that resolved, I would say in the next couple of weeks, and I should be bringing a resolution to the board in April on that. So we got motion and support. Is there any questions or any comments on the check register and bills for payment?
I just have one, and it relates to the parks. When you and I met earlier, I think you answered all the other ones. There's a prepayment that's for the movies on the green in
Mhm.
July. So the prepayment is for $1,960. And my question is, this is March, so we have, that's a long way away from July. And why is that the full amount, or is that to hold, like something?
I think Juan's still on.
I
Is
think,
one-
Bernie, that's for, if you don't mind me, Ken,
Go, no, that's
I
fine.
think, Bernie, that is, they have to rent the movie screen.
Okay,
And I think that's what it's for. So they probably have to like reserve it maybe. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Juan has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know he was
Yeah.
here.
No, you're
So-
okay, Brenda.
So Juan, you online?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so Juan, why don't you go ahead and explain the bill, please?
That invoice will cover all 3 movie events, the July event, the August event, and the September event. All of those events, that one price covers all 3. That price isn't for each event. That is for a total of all 3 events.
so Juan, do they require full payment, or is that partial payment?
They require at a minimum of 50% payment. We paid full payment, so we would secure all the dates and all the equipment.
Okay.
So the question becomes, is this something that should come to the board for approval, township board for approval? Or is this something that can be delegated to the park commission, allow them to make the payment and report it back to us? And quite honestly, I don't have the answer to that right now. There's an entire section of statutes regarding elected park commissioners, and we'll have to review that and see what it says.
Supervisor, may I ask a question? And it's
Certainly.
probably more for Juan. Juan, this has been past practice that we pay for this in advance. Am I correct?
That is, trying to recall last year, this is a brand new vendor, but I believe with the previous vendor, we also paid in advance.
We
That's what
did
I
one.
thought.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
that's what I thought. Yeah, I didn't think this was new. So
Yeah.
I guess then my other question then, Ken, it might be for you. What has occurred that is causing us to, I guess, have the question now about this? Because I think in the past, the parks has actually paid up front for this. So what has occurred now to make this now become a question?
Well, Trustee Linke has raised the question whether or not we can prepay certain expenses, or whether or not we cannot prepay those expenses and they must come to the board for approval. So in the past, we've looked at it that once we make the general fund transfer to the park commission, we delegated to them essentially the responsibility to tell us where the money is being spent, which they
That's
have
what I
done.
thought, because we trust them to do what they have been doing. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted.
So Lisa, from my perspective, from going through the trustee training recently, there's a whole section that the board is just supposed to have a policy that tells us what kinds of things we can approve based on like a pre-approval, and what kinds of things we should approve sort of before the actual check is cut. So that's where these questions are coming up from. Right now, Ken is working on that particular policy with the directors, so that as trustees, we're responsible for the fiduciary piece of this,
Absolutely.
that we know that, it's not really a question of trust, or, I'm not trying to get into what they should be doing or making decisions with their job. It's more what we as trustees are supposed to be doing, and not feeling actually, but believing that we still exercise our legal sort of
Oversight.
authority. So that's what that's
And
what
that's
that's
fine.
about.
And I appreciate that explanation. I wasn't suggesting at all that that you didn't have a right to ask that question, because I didn't even know it was you. I just knew
Oh,
that
okay.
it had been something
Yeah.
that we had done in the past, because as far as I'm concerned, what has occurred, and I thought that with both the fire department and parks, there was X amount of dollars that they could spend without even having to come to the board. And not that they didn't tell us what those other dollars were that were under that certain amount of money, that they didn't keep us well informed of. It's just that I was just wondering, where did this come from? Because I just
Yeah.
remember in the past that we had paid for things in advance. So that's why I was
Right.
getting some clarification. And again, it had nothing to do with you, because I didn't know that you asked. And I was just thinking, because I know we have entrusted them to have done what they've done in the past before. So that's why I
Exactly.
asked that.
So I'll give it just a little recap. In 1995, the board passed a resolution authorizing prepayments, then had a whole list of prepayments, things that could be prepaid. That was approved by the board. In 2008, that was revised through another resolution to include more things. And some of the things that were included in that was, if it was in the budget, it could be spent. Now it's come to where there's a lot of things that we're prepaying now that weren't in the 1995 or 2008 budget, because, you know, things have changed. Like, we weren't leasing copiers back then. We'd buy a copier. Now you got leasing on things. So can we pre-approve lease payments, or does every lease payment have to come to the township board? So in the past, I think it was never specified in either resolution about parks, is that what we said is, if we approve the budget, the Board of Trustees approved the budget that was approved had line items from the parks on everything. And we said the parks could, without having to come back to us for approval on everything, could spend the money in those particular line items. So we're going to find out if that's the correct way or not. You know, if it's the correct way, we'll just continue. If there's things that should not have happened that way, we'll make the correction on the 2021 prepayment resolution and just change a little bit of procedure.
And can I say something, please? Lisa, Nancy, and Ken, we didn't have this problem 25 years ago, because the parks only got $65,000, remember?
That's I do remember. Yeah, I do remember that.
65. Remember that, guys?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, things have changed.
Oh,
You know, I mean, the maintenance wasn't very good back then. Maintenance has improved. But there's like a legal question here of, you have a board that was created by a vote of the people. What is their authority on these expenditures? They might have to create their own resolution or give us a resolution for us to approve. So we'll find out. We'll have that answered in a couple of weeks, and we'll just, if we're not in conformity, we'll just bring it into conformity. You know, if we already
Fix
are,
it.
we'll just restate it.
And Bernie,
Fix it. Yes.
are you still there, Bernie?
I'm still here.
I want to thank you for looking into these things, because, like I said, so much has happened over the years until things can just slip by without even, you get used to it. You know what I mean? So thank
Right.
you.
No, I don't. It's fun. I actually like it.
Thank you.
Sick, isn't it?
That's kind of weird.
Keep everybody on their toes, Bernie.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes care of, we have to have,
Did we vote on that?
not yet, I don't think. So all in favor of approving the bills and the payment and the check register, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Pass unanimously. That takes us to pleas and petitions. Is there any citizen that wants to make a plea or petition the board for any action, or to inform us of any issue that's important to them? Seeing none, I'll say that we have compiled a very long list of people who want to serve on the Master Plan Citizens Committee. And we've got so many, we just can't do interviews on everybody. So we've kind of whittled it down to 9. And I will be reaching out to them in the next couple of weeks to make sure they still want to do this. But we're going to need to have 2 people from the Board of Trustees excluding me, I can't be on it, to serve on this committee, and 2 people from the planning commission. So
And
Rick
I've
and Laura,
mentioned to you that I wanted to serve on it many times.
yeah,
And
so,
it's
we'll
in the planning
go ahead
commission.
and once,
And I wanna serve on there because there's some things I wanna make sure that continues.
all right, so let's just,
That's been in the
flesh
plan
this
for
out.
years.
Let's just flesh this thing out. And once I get the list of 9, which I already have, I'll send you all a list of what's being recommended by Laura and Rick and myself. And then I'll contact those 9 if they are willing to still serve. We'll make the appointments for the planning commission and the board in April. And as you know, I hate to do these master plan committee meetings by Zoom. It's not really all that productive, but we'll probably have to start because COVID's delayed us over a year on this already. So hopefully we'll have the committee, who's on the committee next month.
So
That's my-
Lynette, are you gonna do it for the planning commission or which one were you doing it for?
I was doing it for the board appointment and I was.
Yeah, I
saying
don't think she
because
can
I'm
do
on
it.
the planning commission.
I don't think Lynette can do it for the planning commission. I think she's got to do it for the board.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
We still need 2 people from the board.
But if someone else wants to, but there are some things that's been on the master plan for years that we really need to make sure it goes forward and doesn't get
Absolutely.
lost, you know?
Absolutely.
Brenda,
You know,
if,
this is-
if
this
you
is
need a
not gonna-
backup, I'd be your backup.
yeah, this is not going to
Okay.
be a
Okay.
huge, this is not going to be a huge major revision, but there will be some big revisions
Right.
on like wind farms, solar farms, energy
Interesting.
devices, things like that are gonna be something that's brand new. But we're gonna trying to keep the township north of Getty's rural, south of Getty's urbanized, more urbanized. We'll probably have some information in there regarding our goals for another fire department, maybe a new township hall. I mean, those are aspirational, but it's trying to say, what direction do we want this township to move forward?
Well, Bernie, if you want to do it, you can go ahead and do it, but
actually,
can I just
you know-
have some input with you on some of the things that I'm very familiar with?
Well, you know what, Lisa or Rhonda or Nancy, are you interested?
I've got so much to do, there's no way.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
good.
Bernie,
You
why
want-
don't you go ahead and do it, Bernie? But,
Oh, that'd be, I love it.
okay.
What I'll do is I'll
Give her
send
a
out,
full-time job.
I'll
Well,
send out
it's fun.
I'll send out a board email saying we're looking for 2 volunteers. The 2 volunteers, you guys can all talk about it. Just
We've
today.
already did it, Ken, on this call. It's me and my
done.
niece.
Maybe people want to change their mind. I
Yeah,
don't know.
just in
you know.
case. Lisa, you didn't say anything. Like, yeah, if you guys want to, I don't have to.
So I'll just send out an email and people can get
Okay.
back. All right. All right.
Hey,
that
Bernie,
completes the-
protect those trees.
Protect what?
the
Protect
trees.
those trees.
I love
Okay, Ken, let's
trees.
get, where are you on here?
We're at adjournment. So if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Support. All right. All in favor?
Right.
Turn your Zoom off.
Aye.
All right.
Night, everyone. See ya.
Good night.
Bye.
All right. Good
Good
night.
night. Good night.